All right, so welcome to part 1 of our series on emergency funds. This is one of the most important and overlooked parts of personal finance. Today we're going to break it down. We're calling this first session Defining Emergency Funds. And by the end of it, I want you to walk away with a clear definition, an understanding of what it's for, how much you might need, and why it's not just a nice to have, it's a must-have. Think of an emergency fund like your seatbelt. You don't buckle up because you expect to crash every time you drive. But if that moment ever comes, you'll be grateful for it. You'll be grateful that you buckled in your seatbelt. That's what we're going to unpack, what this financial seatbelt actually looks like in real life. So the thing about life is that it always has surprises, and often these surprises aren't planned. And often when the surprises happen, they seem to come at like the worst time possible. Let's take a look at what we really mean when we say emergency. This slide shows real life examples, and I want you to ask yourself honestly, have any of these ever happened to you or maybe someone you know? So if you look at the right side of the slide here, we have some examples of emergency situations you might find yourself in. Starting off with the washing machine or another house appliance needing repair. You don't realize how much you depend on these things until they're gone. $1,000 to replace or fix? Probably. Say your car breaks or you get in an accident. And let's be real, cars are very expensive to fix. They're not cheap. Even small accidents can cost $1,500 to $2,500, especially when you throw in factors like towing, repairs, or even insurance deductibles. Now, moving on to medical needs. Sometimes you'll have unexpected medical situations take place. Whether it's you, your child, or a parent, medical bills are one of the biggest financial shocks people face, and they're often very large. Now, another situation could be your house requiring repair, or maybe a window broke or a roof leaks. A small crack can turn into a huge issue, especially if it rains. You can't ignore this. It's certainly an emergency. And suddenly, you might find yourself out $450 just to keep water from flooding in. Now, the last scenario that we have here is a really unfortunate one. Stuff at work can change. Maybe you got fired from work, laid off, or if you do contract work, maybe you lost your source of income. This one hits pretty hard. No income for even a few weeks can flip your entire world upside down if you're not ready. All of these aren't what-if scenarios. They happen all the time to so many people. And they don't wait until you're ready or your savings are full. Usually they show up at the worst time. So when we talk about building an emergency fund, we're talking about preparing for these kinds of surprises. Because as this slide reminds us, life has surprises. And most of the time, they come with a price tag. So you might find this slide kind of funny. You see the guy falling down into a net that's being held up by dollar bills with wings, trying to catch him. But really, this is your safety net. You need to think of your emergency fund as a safety net. So really, this slide gives us the most important visual that we're going to talk about today, your safety net. That's what your emergency fund actually is. So let's walk through this slowly. The phrase that you see there that says, if an unexpected bill comes your way, you need to be financially prepared. That is the why behind this. It's not just about being responsible. It's about protecting your peace of mind. No more sleepless nights, no more scrambling to borrow money or max out your credit card. The next statement that says an emergency fund is a stash of money set aside for unexpected events. This one is very simple, it's very clear, and the key word in this is unexpected. That means it's not for a weekend trip. It's not for a new TV, not even a treat yourself moment after you had a hard week. This is for real emergencies, just like the ones that we went over in the previous slide. And that's also why the next statement says your fund and your safety net is not for vacations or shopping. You've got to guard this fund. You got to guard it with your life. This is your in case of my breaking glass window money. So it's only used for real urgent needs. So here's a tip. If you have to ask, is this an emergency? It probably isn't. You would probably know. So this is the mindset shift that we need. An emergency fund is not a backup plan. It's a built-in part of your plan, and it's a built-in part of your life. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but am I going to be the only one that's actually doing this? How many people actually do this? How many people are prepared or unprepared? Now, the North American statistics on this can be a little surprising, a little scary, but they can also be a little bit promising, knowing that you're not alone. So let's get into the numbers, because this shows us just how common it actually is to not be prepared. So take a look at this. From left to right, we see 27% of people have no emergency savings at all. They're living paycheck to paycheck, and they don't pay any mind to having a safety net behind them. 33% of people have more credit card debt than they have savings, which especially means that their credit card is racking up interest because they can't pay it off. So it's okay to be in this situation. You're not alone. 41% of people say that they could actually cover a $1,000 emergency expense with their savings, which is pretty good. But in the reality of things, often in a year, you'll face more than $1,000. So most people do need to raise that number up a bit. Now, 30% of people do say that they have more savings now than a year ago. And I believe that 100% of the people either watching this video or in your classroom, that 1 year from now, you will say, I have more savings than I did a year ago. So let's pause right there. So that means the majority of people either are unprepared, are worse off than last year, or are relying completely on credit cards when an emergency hits. So let's talk about what this actually tells us. It's no surprise that when life throws a curveball, many of us are actually knocked flat. These numbers tell a story of stress, of fear, of anxiety, maybe struggling, and also of being one step away from a financial crisis. But here's the good news. You don't have to stay in that group. Even $20 a week can begin to build a cushion over time, which we will get into later in this slide deck. So this isn't about shame. Let's be clear. I'm not shaming anybody. I'm not shaming you. What this is about is it's about strategy. And we're going to build the skills to change these numbers in your life. So you might have the question of, well, how often is this going to happen to me? When should I be prepared? How often should I be prepared? Should I be prepared at all? So this slide asks that big question of how often do emergencies actually happen? And the answer is, it's way more often than we'd like to admit. So I pulled together some statistics from North America and split it a little bit by bill type and frequency. But the findings are that 56% of people faced a $1,000 or more emergency in the past 12 months. That's more than half the North American population dealing with something major in the last year. Now, it has 32% of people facing a $1,000 or more emergency in the past 6 months. So this means around 1 in 3 people. So look around, count 3 people, and then pick one. And that one person is going to be hit with a big expense, probably in the next 6 months. Now, also, in terms of medical bills, and this is an important one because health is important, but it's also very expensive. 23% of people faced a large medical bill in the past year. So now look around again, count 4 people, and pick one of them. And odds are that person is going to experience a large medical hit, and it could be very devastating financially. This happens for 1 in 4 people every 12 months. So if you've ever thought, that won't happen to me, well, the numbers, they say otherwise, unless you're really lucky. Emergencies don't wait until you're ready. They don't skip you because you're a good person. I mean, I wish they did, but they hit randomly and they often hit very hard, which is why preparing in advance before the crisis comes, building that safety net, it's the smartest, kindest thing you can do for your future self. Okay, so right now you will find yourself in one of two situations. You might be in the collaborative classroom taking this course with a group, but you also might be taking this course online. So first, I want you to pause the video here. So if you're in the classroom, I want you to have a group talk. Go pair up with a partner or form groups of 3 or whatever number is necessary to discuss these situations. And you're going to reflect for yourself and for your peers on what counts as a true emergency. So you have 3 bullet points here to look at, 3 conversation starters. The first one is share a time when an unexpected cost came up in you or your family's life. The second one is how was it handled? And the third one is what would have been different if an emergency fund had been available, if that safety net was there. Now, if you're watching online, I want you to pause the video here. I want you to get out that notebook or get out your notes app or wherever you take notes to remind yourself of the millions of things you think of every day. And I want you to make a list of 5 situations from your own life that would count as a real emergency. Be realistic about it. Don't choose something easy or don't choose something too hard. Choose something you see could actually happen. For each of them, ask, was I prepared? How would I have handled it differently with $500 saved up? Or you can change that number to something bigger if it's more relevant for you to have a $1,000 safety net, or maybe even a $5,000 or $10,000 safety net. It really depends how far along the road you are. But pause this slide, go get in conversation or get in your notes, or do both. Have a good conversation.